What's up, guys? So I got asked to do a video about UFC contracts and how UFC contracts work. So there's multiple ways they work as far as how you get into the organization. I haven't been in the organization in a while, obviously, but I've coached some fighters in the organization since then. But the contract's different when you get in through the Ultimate Fighter. That's how I got into Ultimate Fighter. The contract is different when you get in through the Contender Series. There's lots of guys now that have been on the Contender Series and have did very well. There is guys that just get signed on short notice. Maybe somebody gets hurt and on a week notice, and they sign a guy, maybe a LFA champion or some major feeder organization, their champion, or someone with a decent record that could take the fight and get in the UFC. So the contracts now, from what I'm hearing, the starting salary is 12 and 12. You get 12,000 to show, 12,000 to win, and then most likely that gets bumped up. Like when I was in the UFC, when I got in the Ultimate Fighter, it was a horrible contract. It was 8 to show, 8 to win, and then after 3 fights, you bump up to 10 and 10. And then 3 fights after that, 12 and 12. Well, I obviously negotiated myself out of that one and got a better deal after 4 fights. I was 4-0 at the time, and then I was able to get more money. But a lot of guys, basically, they give you typically a four, like if you just get signed, and not through the Ultimate Fighter, not through the Contender Series even, but I think the Contender Series may give you a 4-fight deal. But most fighters, if they're getting signed, if they're the LFA champion, they're from a feeder organization or something, they're getting signed, they initially sign with like a 4-fight deal, and you're guaranteed, most likely you're guaranteed 2 fights per year, possibly up to 3. You're just, the contracts usually last like 2 years. So if you sign a 4-fight deal, you basically have 2 years to get those fights, or you could get them all in 1 year, depending on how healthy you are, how exciting you are, stuff like that. But basically, you usually, after 3 fights, you renegotiate. You usually don't fight your contracts out, or used to you didn't fight your contracts out. Now I'm hearing there's a lot of guys that do. The UFC is wanting guys to fight their whole 4-fight contract out before they negotiate for the next deal. Used to, they would never allow that. Most of the time, they wanted you to re-sign before your contract was up. They would offer you a deal after your 3rd fight versus your 4th, right? But typically, when you sign, it's 12 and 12 to show, 12 to show, 12 to win, and 4-fight deal is what I know. And then as you win, as you get exciting fights, or you perform good or bad, is depending on how much money you make. Like your contract is not going to go from, it may be up to $3,000 increase versus it used to be $2,000. Like mine Ultimate Fighter contract was 8 to show, 8 to win, and then it got bumped up to 10 and 10. Well, I think it's 12 and 12, and then it gets bumped up to 15 and 15 now. And you only get that bump up in pay should you win the fights. Like, should you win the fights. The Ultimate Fighter contract, you're locked into like a 9-fight deal, or I was, where you had to fight 3 fights at that set pay. Now in the UFC, basically, if you just get signed without the Ultimate Fighter or the Contender Series, you get a 12 and 12 person. If you win that, you get bumped up to the next pay scale, which is like 15 and 15. If you lose, you stay at the same pay, and until you win, or you end up not winning and get cut, basically. But it's hard to get out of your contract if you're good and say PFL's offering you more money, or ONE FC or some other organization is offering you more money, or your manager is in talks with them or something like that. And a lot of it depends on your manager. Like I got in the UFC without a manager. I tried out for the Ultimate Fighter in open tryouts. I flew to Vegas, had a sponsor pay for my plane ticket. I flew to Vegas, and then I tried out I was only pro for 8 months. I was 4-0 as a pro, and 8 months being a pro, and tried out for the Ultimate Fighter, and was blessed and made it. So I didn't have a manager. And then Dominic told me at the time, Dominic Cruz was my coach in the Ultimate Fighter. He told me I didn't need a manager because I was already there. Now, today's advice may be a little different because managers can get you there. So I do think the majority of fighters need a manager now. I was just in a unique situation, but a manager can get you to the UFC. The manager can get you can get you more money as well nowadays. Times have changed. Used to managers would do a good job getting sponsors when there was allowed to be sponsors, but once they stopped and they started doing the Reebok deal and the Venom deal and stuff like that, the contracts for the sponsors now is you get set amount of money. If you're new, I think you get like 5 to 10 grand is your initial sponsorship for your fight. So your first fight in the UFC, you would get 12 and 12, plus you may get, I think, $5,000 or $10,000 in sponsor from Venom, or from, I think the Venom is the company they're using now. You get that, and that's supposed to cover the sponsors you could have gotten outside on your own, or your manager would have gotten, which of course obviously is not the same. Like you got guys in the UFC making 20 grand in sponsors, and they're the main event, and they would be able to get way more sponsors than that if they were on their own. So obviously the Venom and Reebok deal hasn't been good for the fighters for sure, but the pay is increased over the years, but it's, it all balances out because of the cost of living and everything like that. So the contracts are generally, if you sign not through the Ultimate Fighter, they're generally 4-fight contracts, and you have a chance to go up in pay each time you win, and usually they either negotiate on the third fight. After your third fight is over, you negotiate a new deal, or you fight out the contract and then you get a new deal, or you decide to not re-sign, or they decide to not re-sign you, depending on winning and losing and excitement and stuff like that. So it's really not that complicated. The contracts, they're honestly pretty simple. So I hope that answered your question. If you're new to martial arts and you're looking for a gym in your area, get my book, The Ultimate Guide to Choosing Your Martial Arts School and Instructor. Link is in the description. And if you have any comments or any other subjects you'd like me to talk about, leave a comment below. Thank you, guys.